talk is cheap. Let's go through a demo. So if I open up my Business Central instance, so this will be a typical landing page once you access Business Central. I'm currently logged in as a business manager, so I've got that 360-degree view of my data, but I could have narrowed this down as a sales processor or even an inventory manager for the fulfillment side. But if we look at some of the configuration, and I've done some of them beforehand, the first thing will be the fact that we've got that native connector that actually allows us to talk between these applications. And so if I run that connection, you can see that Business Central is able to communicate to Shopify, and Shopify responds and say, hey, I know who you are, and we've got that connection up and running. Then you'll also notice that we can also go and define some of the locations. So if I go to my locations, there we go. Within Shopify, we can have one or multiple locations. And then within Business Central, we will then have to go and link it up to one or multiple locations on this side as well. So here I'm basically just defining that this will be my default location where I'm going to keep stock. And I do want to have that stock availability basically pushing through as well. So if an order goes from Shopify into BC, natively it will go to this one if that was the location that was traded off on the Shopify side. And then just a quick view, and I'm not going to show or explain all of these fields, but yes, we do want to synchronize items from Business Central into my Shopify site. I want to basically go and synchronize my images as well. So if there's an image that sits within Business Central and you want to basically sync that up to Shopify, we can. We want to synchronize the extended text, the marketing text, attributes that we can carry in Business Central into Shopify. We want to basically, update that SKU, and that will be how that item will be known or presented on the Shopify side. We do want to track inventory level, so we want to make that visible. And then we also want to basically make sure that that product variant metadata also syncs across these applications. If we look at the customer side, we could have, so Shopify Plus, that's a subscription of Shopify, does offer the B2B component of it. So if you want to run B2B on Shopify, you need to have Shopify Plus. On the Business Central side, it doesn't matter because we have that native B2B connector. Now, I'm not going to showcase that B2B, but instead of paying online, you can then pay on your account. That's based on your credit limit, and that can sync through to Business Central as well. But if we do that B2C, business to consumer side, we are ultimately just going to define that if that order comes into Business Central, we have a generic customer that we are going to just record, but it will ultimately record the final destination or the ship to location from Shopify into that sales order within Business Central. We are also going to, you can allow, and that's where the bi-directional synchronization can come in, where we can update the customer in either side, and that will ultimately flow through. And then if we look and talk about the sales order synchronization, we do want to have that sales order syncing through automatically. And that can be set up to run every 5 minutes or every 20 minutes or every half an hour, depending on your need and frequency. And that will basically go and pull all the sales orders from your Shopify and basically pull it into Business Central. And we do want to synchronize it on a line level. We want to automatically create the sales order within Business Central. So Shopify order will become a sales order within BC. You can have it released automatically, and that will just lock it down so nobody can make modification. In some cases, you do want to have that modification ability, for whatever reason. So we can actually toggle that on and off. And then we can decide who's going to send out that notification to the customer, whether it's going to be Business Central, because BC, like I said before, has got that native integration to Outlook and the Exchange services that sits behind it. So we can indeed email directly from Business Central, or we can leave it up to Shopify to ultimately go and email the customer that says, hey, the order was dispatched. And then we can also synchronize the attributes as well. So, and then lastly, we want to let Shopify know that the order was indeed shipped from Business Central. So the fulfillment happened in BC, and we want to actually showcase that shipment inside of Shopify as well. And then last but not least, how do we do refunds and returns as well? So whether the stock goes to a generic location that needs to be reviewed, like a quarantine location, that we can then basically go and see what's the status of that product, and then we can move it into a sellable location as well. Or do we want to just, wherever it left our premises, we want to basically bring it back into that location? So you've got some options over there that you can define how we want to treat that, as well as from a return point of view financially. So again, that's just a few of those. There's more configuration that we can play off, but that ultimately is it, right? So within about 10 minutes, I've explained about 70% of what those parameters does, and we've indeed actually just connected our Shopify site into Business Central. So from there, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to quickly show you the items. So if I go to my inventory level, so these will be default items within Business Central. If I click on one of these items, you can see that this is a normal stock item. We've got a pretty picture of the item. We do have item attributes. So these will be attributes that explains or describes the item in its attribute from an attribute level point of view. But what makes this pretty neat is the fact that we can then use Copilot to go and draft some marketing material for us. So it is using all those attributes, it's using the description, and it's formulating a marketing text. So the marketing manager doesn't need to be hands-on or very much involved on the item. They should, or they can, or they might, but they can simply rely on that metadata to go and formulate some fantastic marketing material. We can even then go saying, let's focus more on innovation. Let's change my tone a little bit to make it maybe, more upbeat. We can then basically go and regenerate this. And so Copilot will go back and it will say, well, fine. Let's look at the style, and we even have control to go and change it. So we are in full control over whatever Copilot comes back. Once I'm done, it will basically give you the ability to showcase that marketing text from there. Having a look at stock availability within my environment, you'll see that for my East location, I've got 9 items that's currently available. So I expect that to actually reflect on my Shopify site as well once we sync over this product. So if I'm in such a position that I want to basically present this or make this visible onto my Shopify site, and before I do that, I just want to quickly open up this one. So this will be my very empty store from a Shopify point of view that I've actually now connected my Business Central instance into. You'll see that I've got a dummy product. They're literally a dummy product. And this is a product that I manually created inside of Shopify just to showcase that, we do have only one product over there at the moment. So back into Business Central, if I now go and say, I want to basically synchronize this item into my Shopify site, it's basically going to then make it available immediately. And it's now basically pushing all this information into Shopify, and it's going to make that item available immediately. And I can even click on this button and it will open up the Shopify site for me. But what it's doing now in the background is it is pushing all this content over. It's also synchronized over the image that I've got on this side as well. So if I go back to my Shopify site and I just hit the F5 button, you'll see that item now will be seamlessly synced over to to Shopify from Business Central. If I open it up, you can see that we can see all that content over there. We can even see that marketing material that we've just created, where I've actually created a bunch of garbage in there as well. It will sync over the attributes that you've got over there. It will even sync over the item number, that's SKU number that was part of the configuration. But I don't see the stock availability or the stock on hand. So this is where you can go and extend or customize your Shopify site. Now, I have to be very upfront. I'm not a Shopify guy. I don't know, a lot about how to customize it, but what we can do from a Shopify site is we can go and change the theme, right? So if I go and customize my theme over there, and I go to my product pages, and I go to the default product page, you can see that this is pretty much how it looks at the moment. So and it's even showcasing that product that I just pulled over. I can then go and add a new block in there, and that will be the inventory status that I want to add. So let's just try that one more time. I'll just do that, right? So now it tells me that there's stock availability, and I can even go and, push that over and say, we want to see it right up there. So that is now a live sync that we ultimately pulled over from Business Central stock availability into my Shopify site. So I'm going to save this and I'll exit this one out, and I'll basically go back there. I'm going to hit the F5 button, and now we'll see that stock availability over there. Fantastic. Within a few minutes, we were able to go and create a new stock item, maintain that in Business Central, and then basically push it over. So let's go through the process of trading as a business on a B2C method. I'm going to go and say I want to add this item to my cart, and I'm going to go and view my cart. So you've got that true e-commerce platform and experience. I can even increase that as well. You can have items like discount codes and all the normal stuff that you will have from a decent e-commerce platform. You'll have natively within Shopify. So from here, what I can do is I can now go and ultimately just sell this item. So I'll say this is going to be customer at customer. So it's going to basically predefine some information over there. I can even go and fill in some elements of shipping. And so part of the configuration was, if there's additional shipping elements in there, how does that ultimately translate from a capturing that from a financial point of view? So that's all configuration that you do in the background. And then from a payment point of view, we don't have to worry because it's done all by the platform, the e-commerce platform. So I'm going to say, listen, I've got lots of money in the bank. That basically simulates a transaction that will go through. I'll say that will be my credit card details, and that's going to be the end of it. And we are going to place the order, and we will go and say that doesn't work. So let's just quickly say .com only, and let's see if that goes through. There we go. So we'll now place the order on Shopify. And what we expect to happen is that should flow automatically through into Business Central. Before I showcase that, you'll see back on the Shopify side on the background, we'll have that order now sitting over there. So this is true Shopify. That will show you that, hey, as of today, this was an order that was placed. If I view that, you can see that it's not yet fulfilled, so it's unfulfilled. We can see the content of the item. We can see the details, and all of these weights and information ultimately pulled through from Business Central as well. And then we can see that it's Shopify ultimately will send an email to the customer as well. So, but it hasn't been picked up by Business Central yet. So back into Business Central, if I go to my Shopify orders, you'll see that it won't sit over here. Now, this is because this is it's a live demo, and I haven't scheduled, or I haven't had time to go and schedule that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to simulate that pushing and pulling by manually just triggering that. But that is something that we can go and set up from an automation point of view. So it's now connecting into Shopify. It's retrieving all my orders. There you can see the order comes in. It will pull the information in, and the next action is going to create a sales order within Business Central. So if we give that a moment, so there you can see the sales order will now be created within Business Central. So now it becomes a normal sales order that we can do fulfillment on. I'll click on that sales order, and that will again show you the standard Business Central sales order that we can do the fulfillment on. Notice that the order is still open. That was part of my setup that I did, and we are able to now go and do the fulfillment of this. This was also part of the configuration where I said, at least I want to see that connection between Business Central and Shopify. Show me the Shopify order number. There you can see the item that we are ultimately selling to this customer, that the customer already paid for. And if we had any sort of shipping, it will actually come in as an additional line over there. I can now tap into my warehousing component. So if we do have that warehousing element that's configured, where I'm going to, if we push into advanced warehousing, where I want to have that warehouse shipment, where I'm then going to issue a pick instruction to bring the stock into my picking zone or my dispatch zone and then do quality assurance. I can do that from an advanced warehousing point of view, or I can lean on basic warehousing, where I'm just going to do a one-step process. It's going to be a pick and upliftment process in the same. Or A third option would be I might not be in a position that I've got all these massive warehouses or even employees in there. It might be a company that's, having 2 or 3 employees, but I do want to have the capabilities of managing it from a financial point of view. You can even do the fulfillment directly from the sales order. So it doesn't matter what size your company is or where within your journey of growth you are, Business Central can cater for all three of those areas within the growth. So in this instance, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fulfill it directly from the sales order. We do have the capabilities of generating a pick instruction. So the pick instruction will allow you to, at least if you don't want that warehousing capabilities in the background, to generate just a basic pick document that will give you that ability to go and at least have some controls in place to go and know exactly what item you want to pick and where it's going to reside. So this will be an example of such a pick instruction that you can go and just generate natively out of the box. So from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to modify the sales order. I'm going to fill in some of my shipping or tracking details. So I might be specifying that, hey, I am going to use a DHL for my shipment. And I am going to also fill in my tracking number over there. And let's make this a very awesome tracking number like that. And then from there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to define that I want to ship one item. And I'm also going to generate the invoice so that will recognize it, that the customer ultimately has, incurred it, but the payment will also flow through automatically. So that should be fine. So I'm going to ship and invoice from this front. So Business Central will now go ahead and it's going to decrement my stock out of my East location. And it is going to, do that adjustment from a cost, right, creating your cost of goods sold. It knows what is the worth of that item in the background, and it will ultimately pull all that information, post that real time into your financial system. So this is a demo instance, so hence why it's a little bit slow on the posting side. But in a production environment, this will indeed just zip through and it will create that document for you. So once this is posted, it will also allow you to view the posted sales invoice. And in this instance, I'm going to say no. And I just want to quickly show you that now that I've fulfilled it, I am going to just kick off the synchronization process as well. So the first one will be, let's update Shopify that the order was indeed fulfilled, right? So it will then basically go and change that fulfillment status for me. And then lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just sync it back so that we've got that true, bi-directional synchronization. And so I expect that this one will actually just drop off the list. So it is an order that has been completely handled. I don't have to worry about it going forward. Just looking at my stock availability, you'll see that if I look at my stock, that the stock was indeed decremented. So it's that we should only have, one less item on hand. And if I open up that item card, you'll see stock by East location. So if I drill down there, you'll see that now we'll only have 8 items available. So it does exactly what it should do on the Business Central side from a finance point of view, as well as from a warehousing inventory level point of view. But let's have a look at what Shopify does. Back onto Shopify, without even refreshing it, it will tell you that this order was actually picked up by Business Central. We did the fulfillment for that one item, and you can see that this is the item that was picked and uplifted to the customer. And it will also basically tell you that it was done from the shop location. In the Business Central side, it was from my East warehouse or East location. We also see that Business Central ultimately emailed the customer as well. So it did send an email to this email address, and the order was archived. So going up, if I just refresh this now, you'll see that on this one over here, that it will, even if I just go back one screen just to see that list, we can also see the tracking numbers, right? So we can now, this is good because you might have some of your team focusing on the Shopify side, but you want to have that transparency into the Business Central side without having to pick up the phone or email someone. So I don't have to talk or communicate to anybody from a warehousing point of view. I can just monitor this. If the customer phones in and I'm the first person to respond, I can tell them, listen, the fulfillment was done. It's done by DHL. This is the tracking code over there. Can you go and have a look at it? Or we can even go in there and say exactly when this happened, right? So it's seamless and it is completely transparent across the board. So if I just quickly go to the Shopify site and I go back to my shop and we basically go back to my item, you'll see the item will still be there and we'll now have one less item. So that is a seamless synchronization between not just the item, but also the stock availability.